Hello and welcome to Soups and Sabers. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, breaking down all things Andor is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing good, man. We're maybe a little late to the Andor finale party, but you know what? Life happens sometimes, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But we've got a very bittersweet episode here today. Much like the rebellion, Andor is not here anymore. It's flown away, and yeah, we get to kind of put a bow on what was a tremendous series today. So I'm excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, this was the week to be late, really, because we had the buffer. We're not trying to churn this thing out before the next set of episodes, All right. We are talking the final arc of Andor Season 2, episodes 10 through 12, titled Make It Stop, Who Else Knows, and Jeddah, Kyber, Urso, all written by Tom Bissell, directed by Alonso Ruiz Palacios, and these episodes aired on Disney Plus May 13th, 2025, and take place 1 BBY. If we're gonna say that, probably like December 30th, 1 BBY.
Right on the cusp. Yep.
Yeah, we're right there. All right, I guess give me your general thoughts, and we'll go character by character after that.
Yeah. I thought it was a really nice way to wrap it up. Like the way that I almost viewed it is that it felt like episode 10 was like the pure finale. And then the next two were almost like a Rogue One prequel in a way. We get the bookend of Luthen and all that in episode 10 and that really charged stuff with Kleya. And obviously it wasn't a finale in the sense of like, if that was it, then yeah, we probably would have been like, what happened to X? What happened to Y? But like, they could have made that the finale if they just maybe, mixed some things around and, did whatever. And the way that those last two episodes put all the puzzle pieces into place that we were wondering about with how it was all going to fit into the Rogue One canon, I liked it a lot. Even sort of at the end, when they're having the discussions about whether they think the Death Star is like real or if these are just rumors, I was like, oh, this seems a little like weird, forced. Oh, wait, no, in Rogue One, they don't know for certain yet that the Death Star is really a thing. So it's like they kind of had to do that. So it felt like that was the majority of the last two episodes. Like, was it my favorite arc ever? No, I think the last one probably was, to be honest with you. And this was just more about, again, tying that bow. So it did exactly what it had to do. I liked it a lot, and it was a great closeout to a great chapter of Star Wars that I slept on for a long time, but that I'm very glad I was able to kind of slide into at the tail end.
Yeah, episode 10, I was actually like shocked that we didn't get Cassian like at all.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that was what I meant in the sense of like, if
it wraps up
Luthen's it'd be like, what the hell?
Story. Yeah.
But even sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but even Cassian's ending in episode 9 with like, I mean, he's there with Melshi and K2SO. That could have very much been it, and that would have been fine,
Oh yeah. I was really curious how this was gonna go. So like, we have a friend Jack who was catching up on Andor, and he because of unfortunate events for me on Tuesday night where I couldn't watch it live, right? Like I was on like maybe a 50-minute delay. And he was all caught up now, and he was like, oh, like, I won't spoil anything for you, but he was like, oh, episode 10 was great, and episode 11 is this and that. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how this is going to fit. But, when I clicked episode 10, I think it was, or maybe it was when I clicked 11, and I think I had to scroll down to click 11 to play, and I saw the title for 12, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Jeddah, Kyber, Urso. I was like, this is awesome. And I texted Jack. I was like, I saw the title, though, and it's great for 12. And he was like, is that a Rogue One reference? I have no idea, right? Like we talked about it last week that he hasn't never seen Rogue One. So he watched it the next day, I think it was, after this. And he enjoyed it, but it was just like, I would love to have him on one time and just be like, what was that like? Going from Andor to Rogue One for the first time. But no, I
asked him tonight. I didn't even like think to enter my mind. Pissed.
But yeah, he was. This show was great. it's sad it's over. I still stand by that doing the 4 arc releases was the way to go about this.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
so I don't regret that. I guess I regret the fact that I don't think we're going to see anything like this again. And I'm not saying this like the people that are like, "Oh, Filoni doesn't know how to do this type of stuff."
No,
But I'm
no.
I'm saying it more on like the sense of Star Wars on TV is slowing down, right? Like what do we have other than Ahsoka season 2? We have nothing that we know of right now.
Yeah.
Live action Star Wars on TV. Mando is making the jump to big screen. I just don't.
Everything announced coming up is either an animated show or a movie, and it seems like that's kind of the model they're going back to. It's the model that's worked in the past, obviously.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder if they're just like, we have had so many swings and misses in terms of the critical acclaim with these live action shows. We
It's
love
the cost too. It's the
yeah.
cost. This show cost a lot. Acolyte cost a lot. I think
Obi-Wan
Mando
cost a lot.
I think Mando might be the cheapest one just because it was like they don't pay Pascal the whole time. Like it's as a stunt guy, it's in the volume a lot of the time. Like they can get around a lot of stuff with Mando, but these shows that are on location cost a lot of money, and it was in that era where they're like, we need to beef up Disney Plus as we're about to launch Disney Plus, and they were greenlighting everything they could, and now they're realizing they don't really have to do that. Even if you just look at Disney as a whole, where they took a Lilo and Stitch movie that was going to be a Disney Plus movie and are moving it to theaters, and it's probably going to make $1 billion. And they did the same thing for Moana 2, which was supposed to be a TV show. They condensed it into a movie, released it, and it made a lot of money. Like they're realizing we can still release this stuff in theaters, and then those people will still show up to watch it on Disney Plus afterwards. Like that's the best of both worlds. So I think if there are TV shows that are going to happen, it's going to have to be cheaper stuff. I would say Andor is the way to do that if you're going to. So like there is a bit of hope for me that like using the volume the way that Andor used it, building sets that are going to last like 5 years while you're filming seasons and stuff. That's the way we're seeing it with Marvel, with Daredevil, and doing shows that can be cheaper but also contained and not be casting Jeremy Renner as the lead, right? Like that's how they're kind of going about it. And I'm assuming Star Wars is going to probably have the same sort of thing, but it's going to have to rediscover itself for a bit, I think, to get there. And I think that's what they're doing right now with the movies. If we get another show, it might be like, oh, pick something that came from one of these movies if it's successful. Like, let's say Dawn of the Jedi is successful. Then they're like,
that's we're talking fucking eons from now.
Yeah. But I'm saying like that could be something that they're like, all right, we're gonna explore something in that era again, and like that was successful. Kind of like how this show took Rogue One, which was a very successful movie, and was like, we're doing this. And just props to Tony Gilroy and all of his crew for sticking to who they are, I would say, throughout this whole show. People will say like, oh, Filoni would have fit in cameos here and there. This show has them. It does. They're just characters that are in Rogue One, right? Like, we talked about that Melshi moment last week where he's like, I'm present, but like, this show has those senators from Rogue One with the same actors in this episode. And it was like, I was so thrilled to see them. I'm like, yes, all right, we're building to it, because it makes me realize we're building to Rogue One and stuff. So like, you can still do that type of stuff, but he was just quoted talking about why we didn't see Jyn. He was like, that'd be lame. Like, yeah. And also, if you watch Rogue One, Jyn's story is contained in that movie. You could have a own separate show for her if you wanted to, but fitting her into Andor before they even met each other would be kind of an odd way to go about it.
Well, because they show us the first time they all meet each other in Rogue One. So like the only way that it really would have worked, and I posed the question on, a few weeks ago on whether we thought we would see her. The only way it would have worked is like a post-credit scene or something, but it would have
been
irrelevant.
Seeing her with Saul one of the times we saw Saul, because she used to grow with him. Like,
True. Yeah.
That would be the only way I think it could work.
When he's on the hollow projector talking to Ma, and he just turns around. He's like, "Shut up, Jin."
Yeah, get back to clean your room. You don't know where I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just like sticking to who they are, doing what they wanted, telling the story they wanted to tell. This is something Tony Gilroy had kind of like sketched out, the 5-year plan. They truncated it because they didn't want to do this for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We joke about the Better Call Saul look of like some of the actors being older. If this thing took 10 years to make and we're getting to this last bit, it would be insane.
It would be how do you do, fellow kids? Would be Cassian, with the skateboard.
Because we would still have 3 seasons left with like 2 years in between each one. That means we'd have another 6 years to go, and these actors would be another 6 years older doing the episodes they just did. Like
Ben Mendelsohn, especially too. He's like getting up there. It would be which he's aging very gracefully, I will say.
He is.
But,
and that's the thing too. Is like
long time.
I don't notice any difference in like most of these actors. I thought the one shot with Krennic looking over the Death Star looked weird. I was wondering if he looked younger for me there. I was wondering if they used a shot from Rogue One or if it was just the lighting because he was in like this dark room and his like hair was darker again instead of as lighter as it's been or something. I don't know, but like it kind of stood out to me when I was watching. I was like, hey, he looks a little younger here. Who knows if that's just me though.
Interesting. Didn't catch that. But yeah, just to kind of put a bow on all the stuff you were saying with just Disney Plus and all that. Like, I think we're at a point where the live action Disney Plus stuff is going to be coming more from Marvel and probably a little less from Star Wars. Like, maybe we'll get one live action every 3 years or so. But I think they look at the reception they get from the animated shows, like, Bad Batch was very well received. And they look at the reception they receive from these live action shows. And it's like, we could spend a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a cost. I don't know if I wanted to say of the money or of a cost there. And that's what came out. A fraction of the cost to put out these shows that everybody loves, like, that pulls on people's nostalgia heartstrings to the sort of Clone Wars days with the animation style. Like, why not just do that and save our live action stuff for the big screen where we can make billions of dollars instead of these projects essentially being net losses in the end, which basically every live action project that comes to Disney Plus is kind of a net loss in the end.
Yeah, I would say except for maybe Mando because of the Grogu merch, right? Like that's the only one I can see made them money. Because Skeleton Crew didn't really have much merch that we saw, and like
they were dying to pull that Acolyte merch off the fucking Disney store. Remember that? People were campaigning to put it back on. Yeah,
that stuff wasn't really selling, I don't think. And you have like I'm sure little kids are not like, I need my Luthen action figure, like,
little boy, buy my action figure.
But no, this was just when we talk about the highest quality stuff that we're getting in Star Wars, this is absolutely it. The writing of the characters throughout this whole show, like I said, they just knew what they wanted to do with this show. They set up stuff that paid off. They just wrote characters that seemed human. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. Like, there are some times where we're watching any Star Wars, even George Lucas Star Wars, right? Where, as Han Solo, Harrison Ford said, you can write this stuff, you can't say it, George, right? Yeah. This show had, like, actual, like, human emotions in the dialogue and stuff. It was like, if this was real life, this is how it would be. And I appreciate that, just because I think there are ways to show that we can have like prestige drama in Star Wars, and then we can go back and watch the Clone Wars and laugh at Rota the Hutt or whatever, whatever, like there's the flavor there. But I do hope we get another run at like trying to do something like this. And like I said, if they do a show kind of like Daredevil in the sense of where they're going to do multiple seasons, that's probably the way to do it, because you can have sets that last. You can, you would have to try it. Like, I doubt we're going to start getting, like we've had, where we go from Acolyte to Skeleton Crew to Andor, which are 3 different time periods, 3 different casts of characters,
3 different
in the
vibes.
span, in a span of a year, right? And I think that causes some whiplash too. I think one thing Marvel and Star Wars and Disney had kind of lost sight of, I think, is TV. That this is supposed to be television, and we like to get attached to characters in television, and we like to have stories told in television. And what happens is, yes, it's like, oh yeah, I'm watching the next Star Wars or I'm watching the next Marvel thing, but if it's so disconnected, some people might be like, I'm not vibing with that. I'm not going to watch that one, and it hits the brand as a whole in that part, where like, they didn't put out anything I really liked recently, and then that becomes an issue, and then faith is lost and all that kind of stuff. So if you just had like one show, like if Mando was it and they didn't start pumping out other stuff, and they focus solely all their efforts on Mando, then you don't have the weird meetup of Mando and Grogu and Book of Boba Fett again. Like, you have like, just, you could explore those Boba Fett characters in Mando because they already appeared in Mando. You know what I'm saying? So you could like how this show cuts to Luthen and cuts to Cassian and cuts to Vel and stuff. Like, they didn't need separate shows for all of these characters. They just handled it in one show named Andor. And I think that would have maybe allowed for people to kind of get on board a bit more. But
yeah, and to kind of like piggyback off of your point a little bit, it's also, and this is kind of like Netflix's calling card now too. When you put out so many shows, and so many of them, like, there's not a whisper or a whistle about if we're going to see more of these characters, if we're going to get a season 2. By the 4th or 5th time you get a new season of a show, it's like tough to, even if the show is good, it's tough to invest in it because you don't know when or if you're going to see these characters at all anymore. So it's that applies to the Marvel side, it applies to the Star Wars side, it applies to basically every single streaming service that does their own content now. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a circle around on that, where it's more taking a focus again of like less projects that we think will have legs that people can actually invest in, as opposed to more projects and just throw it all at the wall and see what sticks. So,
yeah, I mean, there's been times when we've been doing these podcasts where we're hit with thing after thing after thing after thing. And it's like, I didn't even get a chance to digest anything,
Yeah.
We'll get to the characters in a second here, but I just wanted to say too, like, on a point of this, like, I used to rewatch like the Infinity Saga a lot. I have not been able to really do that a lot, or with Phase 4, 5, and 6, or with the Infinity Saga again, because every time something new is out, and it's like, okay, I have to watch this thing to cover on the podcast instead of maybe revisiting Infinity War or whatever, like, so that becomes a problem too, is that like I used to rewatch each film before the next movie came out in theaters.
That ain't happening anymore.
For both Star Wars and Marvel. And yeah, it is too big at this point that I cannot do that. And it leaves me to kind of like forget stuff about it because I'm not able to sit there and rewatch them. And sometimes, that becomes a problem too, with just like going from project to project to project. Okay, so let's dive in. Luthen. This episode 10, was all about Luthen, so I figured we'd start with his character until his death here. But he meets up with Lonnie, who is, pulled the sound the alarm to meet with Luthen kind of last minute here, and he tells him he is burnt. He needs out. He and his family need to get out of here. Luthen says he can go to Yavin. We like to say Yavin. They love to say Yavin.
Yavin, yeah.
So, tomato. But he mentions Galen Erso is creating a weapon. That's what the Gorman stuff was for. This is the end game you were asking for last week or 2 weeks ago, right? This is what you were asking for, Luthen. He even mentions that Yularen, who was like the head of the ISB at one point, right, had only found out recently. I want to say here, this is something that bothers me. Retroactively making like Yularen that guy in A New Hope, and then also making him the guy in here, because like from Clone Wars, I just don't feel like he would be on board with this. But like whatever, right? Like I don't know.
It went over my head in real time, so that's basically where it was like, all right, yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I mean, like just the fact that he is so high up in the thing, I'm like, oh, that's cool that they're bringing him on. But like, I've seen that like in canon, they say he was really like put off by how the Jedi handled stuff in the Clone Wars because he was working with Anakin, and I think that's hysterical because he's still working with Anakin. But it's just like one of those things where I'm like, Lauren was a cool guy in Clone Wars, and I'm like, that kind of sucks. He's a Nazi now, but I guess it happens, right?
Yeah, that's gonna say, yeah. Unfortunately, you know, up until like 8 years ago, we didn't know a lot of the people that we love are actually Nazis. So yeah, that's
a bummer.
But even before the whole thing with Lonnie, we get that. I forget or not if it was a cold open or if it was just the first scene, but of him and Kleya sort of like preparing for this last mission and stuff. And, you know, he makes the line about like, we've used up all the perfect, and just right there, you kind of knew off the rip of like,
oh, he knows.
Yeah, this is the end. He knows it's the end. Like now it's just a matter of tying up as many loose ends as he can before that inevitably happens.
The sunrise he will not see, right? Like that is from the monologue here.
It is good though, and I guess I don't want to skip us right ahead to when he has the encounter with Dedra, but that line that I mentioned in the beginning about how, you know, the rebellion's not here anymore, it's flown away, like at least he knows. Even if he'll never see it, at least he knows that like this thing has legs of its own now. I have lit the match, it is burning, and even if I'm not here, it's going to continue to burn until this whole thing is burnt to the ground. I thought that was a very important thing to put in for him, and also I think a very nice way to kind of wrap up his character from an arc perspective.
Yeah, like they say in The Last Shadow, right? Like they've lit the match that lights the spark of the. It's very convoluted,
of the
but
flame,
that's what
of the torch. Yeah.
That he knows. He knows that. But and I know too. I knew this whole time when he's talking to Lonnie. I'm like, Lonnie, you're not getting out of here.
No,
you're not getting out of here.
Very of mice and men. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look at the flowers. You know.
Yeah. Instead of Lenny, it's Lonnie.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. So what did you just poison him? I couldn't actually see like
he
what
shot
he
him.
Oh, did he shoot him? Oh,
yeah,
okay. I was looking. I was like, I couldn't see what he did.
It looked like it was on his like left side of his chest. Okay. When the loft cat goes over and finds him. But I was so mad at Luthen for this, and I get it. Like I totally get it. But like I love Lonnie, and he laid it all out there. He just wants to get out, spend time with his family. He said he has his family stashed away, so I don't think his family is actually in danger, maybe. But for Luthen, that doesn't matter, right? Like he is like, if this guy gets caught, even if I try to get him to Yavin, which I think he would have liked to have done. I think Luthen would have liked that.
World, yeah.
In a perfect world, right? But he's used up all the perfect, right? So it is cover my tracks. I can't let this guy get caught and tell them that we know about the Death Star or like who I am. We can't let them torture to figure out where I am, or Yavin. I just told him about Yavin. I can't let them know anything about this. So the safest way to do that is to kill him, right? And you know, Lonnie wasn't going anywhere without his family too. So that is another 2 or 3 people that you have to fit into a passage to Yavin, and it becomes a lot bigger issue for Luthen here. I think I would have maybe held it more against Luthen if Luthen made it to Yavin, but since you know, at this point he knows he's done, so he's cleaning up, like you said. He kills Lonnie. He goes back to Kleya and tells her, you know, Jedha, Kyber, Urso, Galen Urso, super weapon, all this kind of stuff. And he's going to go back to the gallery and start burning up the evidence, right? And I do think at this point he knows for sure any moment they're going to be on him, because, you know, Lonnie knew he was burnt. So obviously
he was in the back pouring the liquid all over
Yeah.
the communicators. He knew very well that he had like minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
will.
that's why he didn't want Kleya there, right? Kleya was saying that
Mhm.
she was originally supposed to be there or
Yeah.
something. And he was like, no, you have to go. And then
Mhm.
I'll go to the thing. It's because he knew the time was off. And he wasn't going to let Kleya, face the wrath here.
Yeah. I will say I am, as much as it was a bummer to see Lonnie go, and he was kind of like the one who helped so many things move along in this show to help the rebellion. So it was a bummer, but I was glad they did it because it was the perfect bookend of Luthen's character, like as a whole. Throughout this entire show, he has been an anti-hero like to a T.
Yeah.
There has been nothing that he hasn't been willing to do for the cause, nothing he hasn't been willing to sacrifice, even up to lives like we saw with Cinta. He's never been perfect, and he's never been like that guy that you're just going to mourn when he passes, because he was such a great guy. And it felt like if they didn't have him do something like that, that's kind of where it would have ended up.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when you end him with that sort of one last shitty act for the noble cause, it's like that's the perfect encapsulation of what his character was throughout this whole show. So I thought it was a perfect way to do it. I thought Lonnie was a great character to do it with, just because we had
We've
that
known him.
sentimental,
Yeah.
we had that sentimental tie to him. Like we were talking earlier, how we love getting attached to these characters. Even a character like Lonnie, who's not like a main character, but like, yeah, you wanted to see him get out of this thing and like defect over to the rebellion and like be there for the Battle of Yavin and all that stuff. Nope, not gonna happen, because at the end of the day, he was a loose end, and Luthen ties up loose ends, and in basically his last act, that's what he did. So I thought it was just a very nice, very appropriate way to bring his character to a close.
This sets up a great moment in Rogue One as well, because Luthen is the one that has trained Cassian, and Cassian shoots Tivik when he realizes Tivik's not going to be able to make it out of there, right? Like on the Ring of Kafrene, he just shoots him because he knows, like, I think he has got like an arm issue or a leg issue, that guy Tivik, and
he was talking. If he got
and
caught,
the stormtroopers were coming. Yeah, he was gonna talk, and Cassian learning, from Luthen here just takes him out. And I think that was something that, because I remember watching, Rogue One the first time and seeing Cassian kill this guy, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is who we're supposed to be rooting for right now, right? And same thing with Luthen, but TV shows, you're able to kind of dive into it more, where I was mad at Luthen for a bit, but at a certain point, you realize, like you said, he's giving it all up right here. He is doing what he can do. And Kleya is going to take that step as well, because when Luthen confronts Dedra here, or Dedra confronts him, I love this conversation, by the way. And there's like this nice, like, double meaning here when she's asking about if all of this stuff is real in the gallery. And he's like, there's, like 2 items, right, that are.
I have the exact quote here.
Do
somewhere.
you? Good. Good.
There's a whole galaxy I heard too, but oh yeah, at the moment there's only 2 pieces of questionable provenance in the gallery. Like just implying that like the only fake ones there were those 2. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And he comes over and has like this Nautilin dagger, right?
Which I was going to ask you about. Is that like super lore heavy, anything like that? I didn't look it up.
I think that's from this. I don't think it has been any, but no, that is my boy Kit Fisto and his species. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Is it like from legends and fucking?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. But it's cool, but because he's like, it's this ceremonial thing. And I was listening to another podcast that pointed this out because I missed it the first time, when he talks about, like, there's like, she's kind of questions like if it works, and he's like, that's to be determined. He doesn't know, right? Because they don't know if it's real or not. But also he's saying like, it's kind of a hint to him stabbing himself with it. Like that's to be seen, right? Like I will be doing
Give it
this.
about 60 seconds. I'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. Just like this is what I mean by the writing, right? Like just when you can like examine this stuff and like dig into it, it has so many like double meanings. And But, he tries to kill himself, and Dedra immediately, she wasn't that dumb. She has other people out there. She even has a med team, and they come in and keep him alive. But Kleya sees this and, is going to go make sure that he is dead. We'll talk about her journey in a second. But let's talk about Luthen's background, who we find out his last name is not Luthen Rail. It is Lear, his name backwards. And is a former sergeant, I think they said, of the Empire. And I guess was on this. I mean, if you have the subtitles on, which I had to do because of babies and dogs and stuff, I'm not usually a subtitle guy. Okay. But for this show with the low talking and I had a baby and dogs around, I'm like, okay, I have to have this on.
Yeah.
I'm not pausing every 5 seconds. So I am going to just power through this. They're saying like that they killed everything. There's nothing left to kill and stuff. Like the Empire wiped out Kleya's homeworld or wherever this is, or her city, whatever. And Luthen is not made for this. And that's where the episode title comes from. He's just keeps saying, make it stop. He's hearing the screaming. He's hearing the gunfire. And he's just, totally haunted by it. And what I think is Kleya gives him the out. When he sees her,
his tipping point, exactly.
Yeah, but it's also like, okay, now there's this child. I couldn't protect everybody else there. I'm going to protect her, and she's my out. I am going to take this moment. This is my sign to get out, and I'm going to just get out. And it seemed like if she wasn't there, he probably would have been stuck continuing to do this. I feel like is probably how it would have gone.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. For that reason, it was like, he was kind of sequestered away in the ship and was hiding away from all of it and like was essentially guarding himself from having to see all of it. And then lo and behold, right there in front of you is the sort of consequences of your actions, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's this little girl who's holed up in your ship hiding while all of your, supposed brothers in arms, whatever you want to call them, are blowing away her friends and family and everybody she's ever known. So it sort of put the face to it, I think, that Luthen was trying to avoid by hiding in that ship. So by seeing that, I think it was kind of his tipping point. It was like, all right, this is bad. Like, you can't run from this anymore. So let me try to at least do a little something good here and at least save this girl. Which, ended up snowballing into everything in the show that we saw. So
into founding the rebellion.
Yeah. It's like the domino meme. Yeah.
Yeah. Little girl hiding in ship. There you go.
Yeah. Luke blowing up Death Star is the last one.
Exactly. So Kleya sees this, and my thought when I first saw this was like, no, get out of there. But I didn't I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be gone. But she knew what she was doing. She had to go and make sure Luthen wouldn't talk. That's the whole reason he kills himself anyway, right? Like, he probably knows he would break at some point. So let's not give him the chance. So, she goes to the hospital. This is a fun fact. I don't know if you saw this on the Arabesh on the hospital. I kept seeing people say this. I verified it myself by actually going to an Arabesh dictionary. I don't know what it was, like a translator.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Lena So Hospital. So she's the chancellor during the High Republic era. So I think that's a fun little nod. What I assume then is that they built this hospital around that time, and she, they put her name on it or something.
In memoriam. Yeah.
Yeah, after she died or something.
Maybe she was like crucial in its founding or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe she donated, right? Like how you have wings of hospitals and stuff. But yeah, Kleya's gonna go in there and like go to the lockers. These lockers are awesome, by the way. Talk about like Star Wars just making like mundane things really cool.
Yeah, putting the little thing in there. Yeah.
The little pod. Cool. Yeah, it's like a little circular locker, and then she's like this device that hacks it, and it like spins to open. Oh, that was awesome.
Oh, it was dope. It was dope. It was cool too. It was very like kind of Ocean's 11. You know what I mean? Like cameras and stuff, and like very, very covert, very smart.
Gets the nurse's outfit. Yeah.
Really like this part with Kleya. I'll admit the stuff in the second episode felt a little like with her being hesitant to go back with Cassian and Melshi and stuff. It was like, come on, like, why would you not want to? When they're holed up in Luthen's like little place there, and
the
all
safe
the
house.
ISP guards are running up. That one kind of felt a little like, like, I don't know. It wasn't like bad or anything. It was shot very well, but it just felt a little unnecessary. I would have liked to see Kleya come out of that and be like, yeah, from here on out, for Luthen, I'm dedicating like the rest of my life to the rebellion. And ultimately, that's basically kind of what we get in the end anyway. Like, she's with them, and like her and Vel are, talking, which, by the way, finally at least did something with that. Remember in our first episode when I was like, her and Vel had like that weird little interaction. I don't know if they'll do anything with it. Finally paid it off at least like a little bit. I don't know. I guess in my head canon they'll like get together and like that'll be like what happens going forward. I don't know. But overall I was happy with where Kleya ended up. I thought the middle was a little contrived, but everything
I was gonna say I understand what they're going for here, because it's like almost like high school cliques here, right? Where and we see that she's probably right to not want to go at first because of how they treat Luthen when Andor comes in with the intel.
Yeah.
She's like, these people are like, I don't think she sees them as real rebels. And I think she's valid in that sense, because she sees what her and Luthen have been doing, which is actually getting results and getting stuff done. And then she sees these people that are former senators having their own make-believe Senate and being like, we have to vote on this and we have to vote on that. And she's like, this is ridiculous. And I think she knew that they did not.
Not to cut you off, but much like Saw.
Yeah. I think she's, at that point where she's like, I know they're slandering Luthen and I don't really want to go with them. And I think the only reason she does is because, Cassian is like that perfect beacon for both sides, because he's going to say that line later on where he's like, when I say I know Luthen, I mean, I know the good and the bad. Right. And that is like the key thing. And I think that's what he's kind of almost relaying to Kleya here, in the sense of like, he knows Yavin, right? He's like, it's really real. This is something you guys have built. Come with us. But it's like, he understands what her issues are with it too, because I feel like those are his issues with Yavin as well. He kind of plays fast and loose with the rules over there.
Like flying away, just totally like on his own volition, and he's the bad boy, very much.
He does that 3 times. He does it twice in this show. He does it in Rogue One.
In Rogue One too, Foreshadowing.
Yes. Yeah. So that way, when you get to Rogue One and then everything, you're like, oh, okay, he's a rule breaker. We know this.
Yeah, but I do hope we get to see more of her and Vel in some kind of way. We already know for certain that we're not seeing Dedra anymore. The actor said as much, which I do agree with, and I think the vast majority of this show should be left in this show. Yeah, but I think that even if they don't have like their own show, because I think that would probably be a little overkill, but like throw them in there somewhere down the line. You know what I mean? Even if it's just a little thing, maybe in the Thrawn movie or something. Like, timeline wise, it can work. It can add up. So like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me being selfish because they're like my 2 favorite characters in the show. Yeah. But like, I don't know. Let's see him again somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I'm part of like, I'm fine with leaving all the characters behind in this, because it's like
same overall.
I almost dread the books getting their hands on these characters, because they do some weird stuff. Okay, we mentioned the Yularen stuff, right? But like, we looked up like a year ago what happens to Captain Panenka. He becomes like a Nazi as well and joins the Empire, hates Naboo, or like hates Padme, whatever it is. It's like, what? That's all the books and comics and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that type of stuff happening to these characters.
No. But
I
also do think they're a little more concise about what they put in the books these days because it's not so cut and dry as like back then. Like George would say, the books are the books and they're not real until I want to make them real. Now it seems like things are a little more made with the intent of tying in and not totally ruining the sanctity of the shows. So I think we'll be all right there. Hopefully. Who knows though?
Yeah, because I remember we had the books. I forget what level canon they were, but then you had what we called G canon, which was everything George Lucas did. It was the 6 movies, the Clone Wars were G canon. And then below that was like book canon and comic canon and all that kind of stuff.
We are such fucking nerds, Star Wars fans. Like, oh my God, bro.
I remember sitting in this is how nerdy I was. I had a computer class in 5th grade or 4th grade, one of those grades. And I was finished, we would do those stupid like math games on the computer where you're like doing stuff. Once I was done those, I'm like on StarWars.com on the data bank and I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, oh, G canon. And I'm hardcore into that. I was looking up characters and doing all that stuff. Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Love it.
What I loved about the hospital though, great bits with the aliens in here. There's one you just see with like a red tail walking down holding his IV. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yes.
And then you get the old lady.
What?
And then she just leaves her there. You see her later like kicking her feet and stuff. Like
my grandson is Kid Fisto. Sure it is, Grandma. Come on.
I just love it.
Reference in this episode.
Yeah, can't get enough. But she gets in there. She takes Luthen off life support after like taking some troopers down. She blows up some detonators as a distraction. And I just want to shout out the actress Elizabeth Dulau, I guess is how you say that.
Hell yeah.
First acting credit ever.
Crazy.
Is Andor, and she knocks it out of the park.
Won't be her last, I can tell you that much.
No, yeah, this is her breakout role now. I mean, this is insane. Because I was looking up, like, man, she's so good. I looked her up, and then I heard other people saying it was her first acting credit, at least season 1. She probably had stuff in between 1 and 2 now, but I mean, I think Tony Gilroy, when he figured out what he had in season 1, was like, yeah, we can do a whole episode around her. I mean, she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And even the little girl they had playing young Kleya was really great, too. I mean, she had the fire as well.
She did. So now we have to do the only proper thing and start being like, all right, well, who's she going to play in Marvel? Who's she going to play in DC? Who's she going to play in every other franchise? Give us
Thunderbolts came out and people are like, who should Louis Pullman play in DC? I'm like, nobody. He's in Marvel. What are we doing?
Nobody. He's in Marvel.
It's just like you said, that it is ridiculous. We get that anytime somebody breaks out, and I was just thinking that earlier today as I'm scrolling Twitter and just see people being like, should this person play Robin? And I'm like, I've never even heard of this guy. What are we doing? It's like a person that vaguely looks like him, or it's like the biggest star in the world, like Brad Pitt. Who should he play?
Yeah. Fun. Always fun being on superhero social media, or just really any kind of random social media.
Okay, so then this is what I found interesting too. She didn't know who she's transmitting the message to, right? Like she doesn't know who she's like when she's doing that.
When she's doing like the Morse code thing? Yeah.
Because when Cassian gets there and he's like, Luthen, let me in. It's me, Cassian. She's like, oh, of course it would be you.
Surprise!
Like, she had no clue. Yeah, that's who was gonna be sent. Like, I think that's cool. Luthen kept everything really close to the chest on who had the other box, who, all of this stuff was, I think, really well under wraps. But Cassian thought he was there for Luthen. She kind of fills him in on everything. And they're going to get out of there. But we'll cover more of that fight when we get to Cassian's point of view, which is now. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I love the opening for Cassian here with playing with cards or whatever it is with K2 and Melshi.
Yeah. Basically everything, like 99% of what we got from Cassian here is just a lot of that like action. There wasn't really. It felt like most of the arc really got kind of tied up last week. We did get a lot of fun action, you know, as much as I think the whole Kleya thing may have been a little, I don't even want to say unnecessary because it was really cool. And like, I'm glad we saw it. I just think, you know, there's a world where it could have been maybe a little tighter, but
yeah.
Like all the stuff with K2SO that we got with that, messing up the ISB guards and using them as like the meat shield. And
Oh
everything.
my God.
Like,
Yes.
that was great. That was great. That was.
Are you with us? No. And he just pushes them off.
Yeah. And he kind of does like what the other security droid does to that dude on
yes.
Gorman. Yeah, where he kills him on Gorman. Yeah. It was like kind of like turnabout's fair play. Yeah. No, that was dope. I was like, damn, holy shit.
Yeah, no, like I think Cassian's arc, like you said, was well done last week or whatever. But I think the end of that arc is here when he sticks up for Luthen, because we've seen him have it just constant headbutting with Luthen throughout season 1 and 2, right? And like so much so when the episode you weren't on, right? But when Gorman first happened and he sends Cassian there. And Cassian comes back saying they're not ready and stuff. Luthen and him are button heads there. He's like, who cares if they're ready? Like, it'll be another front for the Empire to fight. And, you know, he gets upset with Luthen. He goes to the shop and confronts Luthen and says, you know, about
you went to see Bix. Yeah.
And here he is sticking up for him in front of all these people and saying that he has sacrificed more than they ever will for the rebellion. And that cuts deep, I think, to everybody here. But you mentioned K2 holding up. Yeah, he holds up Hirt's body. I was kind of surprised. Hirt died. Not that he died, but like he dies to K2 and then it's just used as a shield. Oh my God. That was Cassian. I've cleared a path.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. We'll say that much.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have they're on Yavin. And he's like immediately called to this council where we see Mon Mothma. And I want to shout out your hat. I don't know if it was intentional, but your hat is Mothman.
It wasn't. Holy
like,
crap.
At the end, and it's Mothma.
Mothma. Holy crap. That is so funny, dude. I literally did not even realize it. Holy crap.
Because at first I'm like, is this a Mothma hat? And I'm like, oh no, it's this Mothman.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I this probably
used
like
up all the lucky today, I guess.
Yeah, I used it all up. Too good.
But Bail Organa's there. Senator Pamlo is the lady who's in Rogue One, and then Senator Jebel is there too, and he's also in Rogue One. He's the guy with the beard.
Was Akbar in the room for that scene? I know he was there.
Wasn't Akbar? It was Admiral Radis.
Oh, okay.
He's in Rogue One. Yeah. So, yeah, they're all. We're starting to get more bits and pieces of all of these people who are gonna appear in Rogue One.
But yeah, to your point, Joel, just about Cassian defending Luthen.
Yeah,
you made the reference before about how he makes that choice to kill. Forget his name off the top of my head. In Rogue One, it's almost like that in that moment where he's defending him. It's almost like kind of also realizing like he is him a little bit, and like he has to take some of that if they're going to be successful in like carrying this thing out to the end. Like he has to provide that thing that Luthen had that's no longer there because Luthen's no longer there.
Yeah, I just love it when the line I said earlier, when I say I know Luthen, I mean I know the good and the bad, because like look, like I said, he's been butting heads with him this whole show, and at this moment he knows Luthen died for this, so he knows it's important, right? Luthen is not somebody that would just die for anything, right? So he knows that this is good intel. It has to be. Bail Organa kind of says, hey, Luthen was on Coruscant too long. Says the ISB, from what we last heard, we're on to him. This could be a planted story, right? They're not fully buying it right now, which I kind of get, but Bale was an ass this episode. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
I was a little
Like,
pissed
go
off.
back to Alderaan, dude. Surely
Yeah.
you won't be blown up. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, when's your flight, dude?
Bring back fucking what's his name? I don't like this guy. Bring back Jimmy. Yeah, fuck this guy. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I actually really like Benjamin Bratt in the role. I've seen some people being like, whatever, but we've had recasts before, and it was a scheduling issue. I'm sure. The question is, who do they call back when they want Bale back again? Do you go back to Jimmy?
I'd imagine so. I think this will just be like the Andor / Rogue One, or not even Rogue One. Just this will be like the Andor, version. I think we'll go back to Jimmy Smits if we see him again, which I can't think of anything we'd see him in. Like,
not that's on the docket.
Everything coming up is post his ass got blown up. So yeah, it would be a long time even if we did.
Yeah, and it was obviously scheduling stuff. That's what they said. Tony Gilroy said that. Also, he was just in Obi-Wan. He's been in Rogue One. That's the funny thing. If you watch this chronologically, this is hilarious.
It is, yeah.
You go from like Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan Kenobi is Jimmy Smits. Then you go to Benjamin Bratt, and then immediately an hour later, you're watching Jimmy Smits in Rogue One. Same thing with Mon Mothma.
I haven't been feeling myself the last month. Sorry, continue.
We have Mon Mothma, the lead scene of Revenge of the Sith, and Rogue One and Andor is played by Genevieve O'Reilly. And you have Return of the Jedi, and it's played by the original actors. And you watch Ahsoka, and it's back to Genevieve O'Reilly again. I mean, it is what it is, right? This is the thing when you do stuff out of order. It happens. Yep.
You just it's something you just got to accept. You got to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
Yeah. Mon is going to step up here and give Cassian permission to go to the infirmary, though. And I felt like she stepped up on that because she is, I think, acknowledging that she believes Cassian. And also, she wanted to get that out before somebody else denied the permission, right? Because he's being told he's being grounded for breaking the rules and stuff. And she immediately jumps up like, yep, approved. Go.
Because she also believes Luthen. She was around him a lot on Coruscant. She knows that if there is anybody in the world who was not going to be turned into a plant, it was him. And that if he said something going back to when he killed what's his fucking face? I forget his name already.
Take Homa, yeah.
Take Homa, yes. Like he's always kind of known the deal and known what's up, and like she knows that he would do whatever he had to do to preserve the rebellion. So there was going to be, like, if anybody in that room was going to take the whole Death Star thing to heart, it was going to be her. So I think that was also a big thing that played into it as well.
Yeah, and, she sends Vel immediately because she knows Vel and him have this connection. Says, can you just find out that I want to believe him? Like, find out if it's true. Get what he knows, type of thing. I also just love Cassian here when he's, when's the last time you spoke with Luthen? And he says, a year ago. And they're like, a year? It's like, yeah, when he had me save Mon Mothma from the Senate. And Bale's like, noted.
What are you going to say now?
His guy that was, it was Bale's team that was infiltrated. You know? So it's like, dude, I covered your ass,
Yep.
Draven comes up. I love this guy too. General Draven here comes up and says that they have a contact they have with Saul that has info that he's only sharing with Cassian. This is Tivik, and he needs to go to Kafrene. So they Bale, I guess, his cooler heads have prevailed or whatever. Comes in and grants Cassian to go, and we have Cassian's journey ending on this march, right? As he's marching from his barracks or whatever to his ship, and we see the Force healer. It seems like she knows here this is it, right? I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And maybe he does too, right? When he's looking at her, I don't know, he might realize that this is the destiny part here, and that maybe he's not going to be coming home. I mean, he does come home. They come back to Yavin and Rogue One, but
yeah, in this
Dying.
specific part, but yeah, it's like, yeah. She's like, this is the beginning of the movie. Yeah.
I love this one.
Yeah, yeah. I won't spoil the ending for you. Yeah.
But we talked about her last week, right? How cool she is, and how, and I retweeted this too, like just how original trilogy she feels. I don't know if it's the haircut, don't know if it's the actress face or the clothes or something, but she just looks
All of it.
ripped right out from the original trilogy.
Yeah, it was all of it, dude. It was the perfect package. It was like weird because like it fit very well in this show, but like compared to some of the stuff that we've seen in like Ahsoka and Acolyte and stuff, it was like positive whiplash going back and just seeing something like that again.
Yeah. And we this end scene here, we'll go to the Empire side in a bit here, but we get to see Vel and Mon eating with the rebels. Will and Drina are happy, right? Melshi's jogging with the rebels, and we get the alien pal behind him, that guy with like the big open mouth.
Yep.
He's in Rogue One. I think I have a Funko of him or somebody from Rogue One that my wife got at like a yard sale or something for me. I don't think it was Pal. I think it's like the weird furry guy from Rogue One. But anyway, we see like Krennic overlooking the Death Star construction. Dedra's imprisoned. We'll talk about her in a second. And then we get to see Bix happy on Mina Rao with baby Cassian and B2. I'm so happy B2. And B2 has like a lady. He's got like a yellow droid he's playing tag with or something.
Yeah. Yep. W Riz B2. Yeah. As the kids say these days. Yeah, no, that was a gut punch, man. Like a positive one and like a very good bookend for this show. Just knowing that, like, Cassian's legacy will live on and stuff.
Yeah.
That's another thing, they could explore in the future. I don't think they will. It just seems, you never know. I put up the joke tweet the other night, like, just wait until Ryan Gosling gets his hands on Cassian's son and starts training on the Force. Like, who knows? I doubt it.
I've seen people speculate it's, that it's Poe Dameron's parents, that or whatever. I've seen people speculate it's somebody related to sequel trilogy or other characters like that. And I'm like, yeah, we don't need that. All right? No. We don't need that. It's just little baby Brasso named after Brasso. And that is
and it looked like he was wrapped up in like Brasso's coat too. Maybe that was just me.
Maybe.
I could just be reading too far into it, but it looked like a similar sort of material. So
I didn't notice that. I just remember seeing like its little foot dangling out, on the the wheat fields or whatever. And it seems like, I don't know when this is supposed to take place, if it's taking place at the same time or if this is, sometime after the news of the Death Star or something. But any time where she is looking out at the sun and she's just thinking, I made the right move. I got my baby. He's with the rebellion doing what he needs to do. I can't interfere with that. I wouldn't actually be shocked if it was. There's hints that she's Force sensitive from last week,
a little bit
talking about so maybe she felt something with the loss of him or, doing something like that, but it's like more of a hopeful thing for her in that sense. But yeah, no, just a powerful shot to end the show on with Bix. And I'm glad we talked about, maybe we get a little flash forward with Bix. How do they, like, maybe we were thinking maybe they'll tell her he's dead or whatever, but I'm like, you don't want to spoil Rogue One that way. And I think they did it the perfect way of like setting him onto Rogue One and then just kind of cutting to her, seeing her with the baby. I think that's perfect.
It's just such a more hopeful note than her finding out that he's dead. You know what I mean? It was the perfect way to end the show. It really was.
Let's just quickly talk about Dedra. Dedra loses it all here. And this is a much more fitting end, I think, than getting on the Death Star. So this is the finger on the head. Ben Mendelsohn apparently improv that. Oh my God, so good.
He's so fucking good, man. He really is. He's tremendous.
Oh man, can you believe he was in Secret Invasion and they didn't do much with him?
I know. Yeah. No. Wait. What's Secret Invasion?
But we got Dedra in hot water because Lonnie was using her credentials, and then she takes the whole squad to get Luthen without approval, and does it on Hurt's day off.
just a monumental like sequence of fuck ups that like you would think. By the way, I'm swearing a lot in this episode. My apologies, everybody. It almost feels like losing Cyril was just kind of like it. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess the best way to put it would be like maybe she lost her fastball a little bit. She became more emotional, more, reactionary. And we see that very much in the way which that she sort of approaches this whole Luthen thing. It just, I don't know. It felt like losing Cyril was sort of her, don't want to say breaking point, because obviously she's still around for like a year after that. And, we get everything we get in the last 3 episodes, but it was almost like that was her first domino that ultimately led to her being put in a cell. Very ironically, one that looked highly identical to Narkina 5 at the end, which I thought was a nice touch.
According to StarWars.com, I believe this is Narkina 2. It's not a joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is, I'm guessing because Narkina 5 was run over, that they have other ones, right? So they put her on the other one. But yeah, and she is, like you said, the actress said that's it. And I think that's it. Because the question is, right, like what we know is the New Republic have like a whole amnesty thing and let people from the Empire into their government and stuff. We see that in Mando. We see that in Ahsoka and stuff, right? Yeah. Like, she could technically get out. But I think with her being the head of the Gorman massacre, there's no coming back from that. I think she's seeing.
Plus, by the time, I guess that would track. So I was going to say, by the time that would be possible, she would also probably be like 70. But no, that the whole the original trilogy takes place over the course of like what? It's like a year, 2 years,
5, like 5 or 6 years. There's 3 years.
Really? Okay.
3 years between New Hope and Empire, and like 6 months, I think, between 6 months to a year between the other two, Empire and Jedi.
So it would have been possible, but I mean,
it's like a decade later, because then 6 years for Mando after Return of the Jedi. So you're looking at like maybe a decade.
Yeah, not like it would have been possible, but Denise Guff, I think that's how you say her name, has put the kibosh on it, saying, no, this is the end of Dedra, which honestly I respect, because sometimes shitty characters don't deserve to get redemption. Sometimes shitty characters just deserve the fate that they get. That's kind of like my biggest problem with, not to go off on a side tangent here, but like The Walking Dead right now, and now like Negan is like still around and he's got his own side show.
Oh, the spinoff,
like,
yeah,
and it's like he's redeemed, but then he goes down the dark path again, but then he's redeemed again, and then he's good, then he's down the dark path again, and he can't figure out whether or not to put down Lucille or to pick up Lucille, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, just end it already. Like,
when shows go on for too long, that's what happens.
Yeah,
it's happened in.
That they're not doing it with this.
Yeah, it's happened in like Smallville. You'll have like Lionel Luthor be a villain, then he turns hero, then he turns villain, then he turns hero, and you're like, which week are we on? Like, what are you this week? Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that when you have it plotted out, when you have this stuff done, it just tracks. And she's in jail, and she was the instrument behind the Gorman massacre. I can't see the amnesty growing that far. I can see when you're like, people like, oh, I was following orders. She knew what was happening and she did that stuff, that it is like, there's no way out for her, literally. That's so calling back to Narkina
it's the real world equivalent of like, letting somebody out of jail who's got like a pot charge. It's like, yeah, you'll let them out. You're not letting Jeffrey Dahmer out of jail.
Right, exactly.
There's levels.
No parole. No chance of parole here.
Yeah.
We also get to see Partagas.
Oh, yeah.
Give it a go here. He's like listening to Nemec's manifesto, and he knows the rebellion is spreading out, and he's like, there's no like kind of putting a stop to this now, and he knows he's about to probably face a jail cell for the rest of his life as well, so he just kills himself.
Yeah. Which is such another one very fitting ending. Like, basically everybody in this show got what they deserve one way or the other. Even the characters that you wanted to see, like Luthen, you know what I mean? Like, sure, we would have loved to see him see things through and, be a staying force on Yavin as they take down the Death Star. Nope. He deserved to die at the end of the day for the many shitty things he did, albeit in support of a good cause. But he did some shitty stuff, and he deserved what he got. Very much in the same way that Partagaz does, and in the way that Dedra does. Like, it's just, in the way that Cyril does last week. Like, it's just, the show is very much about being real as opposed to like being tropey, and I just respect the hell out of that. And the actor too just kind of killed it in this last scene, no pun intended. Just like you could just tell like the slow realization coming over him, and like realizing that he was screwed. There was nothing left to play here. He was being brought, essentially, I don't know if it was going to be jail for life or if it was going to be like a fate worse than taking himself out with a blaster. Who knows what the hell Vader or Palpatine would have done with him. So it was just, I thought, a very cool way to wrap it up for him.
Another Game of Thrones alum.
Yes.
There. So they did that well with casting these. That's the thing too. You have like all these people that are cast that are. His name is Anton Lesser. But yeah, he played Qyburn. That's what I was looking up. I couldn't remember his name. But just casting absolutely incredible actors and letting them do their thing. Like that's what's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He was on Game of Thrones for 22 episodes and Andor for 17. But like it took more years for Game of Thrones because he'd pop up every so often.
Yeah, it felt like Game of Thrones forever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 7 years for Game of Thrones.
A little more sporadic too. He'd be in like one every 4 episodes.
Well, he's in like every episode of this show, pretty much.
Yeah.
Almost.
Basically, just plays like the same character, just in a different world.
Yeah.
Just a conniving, you know what.
All right. Anything else about Andor before we kind of put a button on it?
No, man, just like I said, I'm really glad that I hopped on it when I did. It was a tremendous show. It was a very much blueprint opportunity to show Star Wars what does and what doesn't work. Well, not even what doesn't, because basically everything does. I guess the other shows would kind of be falling under the what doesn't category, but shows you like what works and what is going to get people talking and make people satisfied, and like shows you that there's a genuine market out there for an adult-centered Star Wars. You know what I mean? As much as I used to be one of those who was, I need lightsabers in my Star Wars. I need the zippy-zappy kind of stuff. Like, this show kind of turned over a new leaf for me in that regard. And, like, I want to see a lot more Star Wars like this. So hopefully that'll be the case. Hopefully they find more new ways to keep telling stories like this, and it wasn't just a one-off experience. But I would like to have enough hope. Emphasis on would like to have enough hope in Disney that they can identify this and say, yeah, we need more of this, whether it's, having Tony Gilroy do another project or just finding a different time period and a different subject that captures this similar tone that allows you to reach a whole new audience of Star Wars fans. The audience of Star Wars fans really that made Star Wars what it is today, the older Star Wars fans, not to shade the younger ones. We love all Star Wars fans here, but the ones who've been there from the start, this is the kind of stuff that they want, and they can keep giving it to us if they would like. So who knows? We'll see, but just a tremendous show, tremendously written, tremendously directed, tremendously acted, tens across the board, and I hope we get this level of quality going forward.
Yes, this is... When we're talking about the quality of Star Wars, we don't mean it all has to be like Andor in the sense of dark, gritty, realistic, whatever. We're saying at this point, what I want going forward is to have shows that have the thought behind the script the way this show has the thought behind the script. Tony Gilroy had a message he wanted to make about fascism growing in... throughout history. He's looked at so many cases of this throughout history and has put it into these into this show and into these episodes. And that's what we want. There is stuff that there's not really much in this show that you can look at and be like, why did a character do that thing and not have an answer for it? You can kind of put yourself in the mind of the character, or it's addressed or whatever, and there's a reason for it. And that's how it should be. And that's how TV has used to be. What I would also say is I still love a lot of the projects we've gotten through Star Wars, so that's not really my problem. But I do think there are some gaps there that we've known in these shows that could be tighter, that could be a little better, this could be a little better. And this show is one of those where I don't really see that. I see this is like the standard now for storytelling in this world is do this again, just like have a completed set of scripts, know your plan. People want to say the Acolyte had a plan. They did have a plan for seasons 1 and 2, but there are a lot of questions that I have with why were characters doing this? Who was I rooting for this that I don't have in this show? I know who I'm rooting for. I know why I'm rooting for them, and I know why they're doing what they're doing. And I didn't have to come on the show and be like, why are they? Well, we have a few more episodes. Let's wait to see if it's answered.
Even despite having a ton of morally gray characters.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. So this is like how it should be. And I hope that, we've talked about it before. Tony Gilroy is like, he is fond of Star Wars. He saw it. He's not a hardcore fan, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be. Yeah. Get him another project. If he wants to do another project, see what he's interested. Just go to him and be like, what do you want to do? But not even if he doesn't want to do anything. I think Marvel and Star Wars has to stop doing what they were doing. And what that is trying to find the next up and coming person and giving them carte blanche to do whatever.
Yeah.
And find experienced people. Like Tony Gilroy did the Bourne movies, like 20 years ago. Like he has been around forever. He knows what he wants to do. Find somebody that is experienced, that, we shouldn't be giving shows and stuff to people that have never show ran or only show ran one thing before. Like it should be like, hey, let's find somebody that is good at television and does what they do or has a solid pitch and then give them the resources to do it. Mm-hmm. I saw an interview with Tony Gilroy where they were talking about, I think it's even some of the crew that he had working on this was not fans of Star Wars. Some of them were and would be kind of like, oh, wow, we're doing X-Wings. And some of them just like, this is the job, get it done. And you need a mix of both, because when you're dealing with it too much with reverence, I feel like you get a little scared to take bold swings, I think, at times. And I think that's the issue right now. So hopefully, like you said, they see this. I think it's starting to show up more on the streaming charts and stuff. So I think this will be a show that people just, with good word of mouth, find years from now, and it just continues to do well, hopefully, that makes them say, we need the next Andor. Give me the next Andor. And they try to find a creator that can do that on maybe a little bit of a lesser budget. But, definitely, even if we're talking movie side, like I'm so hyped for Dawn of the Jedi if that ever gets done, because Beau Willimon is the writer on that, and he wrote episodes of this show, and he wrote episodes of House of Cards, episodes of Severance that I love, and I'm like, that's like, he has a track record, like that. And then also when you look at Mangold has the track record too. So I'm like, all right, like that's the kind of stuff we need going forward.
There's some pieces in place now. Yeah, let's see what we can do. Yeah.
So I'm hopeful, but we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of glad we're through the glut of everything they had stacked up since they first announced during COVID. We're through that. Everything is done. And now we just get to new stuff, hopefully after a reset for both Marvel and Star Wars. Kind of Marvel's almost there. They're getting through Ironheart and Wonder Man this year, and then they're through their reset. They're like, everything that we've announced is done. Everything we filmed is done.
Yeah. But I guess just to kind of put a final word on Andor, not even just looking ahead just as much, just bravo. You know, you gotta, if you're gonna crap on them when they do things that you think miss, you gotta applaud them when they hit. And this hit. This was a moment in time for Star Wars fans, one that those of us who were a part of it will probably remember for a while. Again, even though I was only a part of the live side of it for the second season, just it was a very fun experience. Even in the fandom not being so divided as much, it was just
Yeah.
a little bit of a reminder that, like, yeah, we can all get on the same page once in a while, you know?
Yeah, and I wanted to what you said there of coming into it late and stuff. If you listen to this, you probably already watched the show and stuff. But I just want to maybe we can even clip this. But if you tried the show and you thought it wasn't for you, and you still hear good things, give it another shot. I know a few people, not just you, that like watch the first 3 or whatever, and it's like maybe not for me. And then get through that batch and it is all up from there because you get like the Aldani heist, right? You get the Narkina arc, like it just takes off.
You go, once you get to Aldani, it'll hook you big time.
Yeah, so that is that's my plea to people. It's like I understand the first 3 might be a little tough because it's throwing you into stuff you don't really know. It's maybe a little slow paced at first, but it's setting up the characters that you are going to continue to see throughout this journey, and it's well worth the payoff when you get to the end. So exactly. That's my pitch for everybody there. But at Soups and Sabers,
you must contact me
at Soups and Sabers or podawakens@gmail.com for our email right now for Star Wars related items. That is where you can contact us and let us know your thoughts on Andor, Skeleton Crew. Those are the 2 recent things. The celebration news, anything that you want to talk about Star Wars, you can send us an email. We can talk about it. And I guess we'll be shifting off of Star Wars mode in June, but we still have a couple things left here in May for Star Wars that we are going to be celebrating. Can we say what they are, or do we have them locked down? Okay. So we definitely have the Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary celebration that we were going to be having with our special guest. Ron, do you want to tell us who that is?
Of course. It's our boy, Tommy. Y'all, he's been with us so many times at this point that it's almost, y'all know who he is. He's our good pal. We love having him on and chatting with us. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was on the Phantom Menace one. So we usually just look back at the movie, talk about our favorite like piece of merchandise we have from it, favorite memories, favorite scenes, stuff like that is how we'll kind of dive into.
It's more of a retrospective
celebration
as opposed to a review. Yeah, we're not going to go scene by scene. Y'all have seen it so many times at this point. It's just going to be, kind of talking about our own experiences with it and, hopefully hearing all of your experiences with it in the comments.
Right. So when we saw it in theaters, when we saw it for the first time, that kind of stuff. Like that's what that's for. So really looking forward to that. And then potentially the draft, or do we have the draft? We got it locked down?
Still working out some details, but I feel good enough that we can throw it out there.
Yeah, so we'll be doing another draft for Star Wars like we did for our Jedi Council one that kicked off the month on May 4th. So we'll be having a villain draft that we'll be doing. Just villains, not Sith, because that's a little too small. But but a villain draft. So that's the goal there. So we'll be having that to kind of wrap up May with Star Wars. And then we'll be looking ahead to June, where we're going to be kicking off our Superman Sundays, where Chris and I are going to be doing Superman build-up every Sunday, starting June 1st with our Smallville Season 10 coverage there. So you can check that out. And then we're doing like a Superman live-action suit tier ranking. We're going to be looking at Superman, All-Star Superman comic. We're going to be doing all that stuff building up to July 11th. I'm trying to get Fantastic Fridays going on for Fantastic Four. We want to try to dive into Fantastic Four Life Story, the comic. I want to discuss that. Jack and I are going to discuss Fan Four Stick because I haven't watched it, so I got to watch it, and then I got to discuss it.
Oh, man. My first thought was about to be like, I got to jump on for that one, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to, actually.
I just know Jack's talked about that as like his first biggest miss in theaters of like, what is this? And like, I've never seen it because I just stayed away from it. And he said like a year ago, you have to watch it before Fantastic Four First Steps. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it.
It's it's one of those Madam Web things. It's like you have to see it. Like it you know, it's not good. Oh, you really?
Yeah, I haven't watched Madam Web yet. No.
Oh man, what? Oh, dude, you're missing out.
Yeah, we'll see if I see it anytime soon. It might, if I watch it, it'll be for the podcast for some reason, like the 10th anniversary of Madam Web or something. But yeah, so that's what we got building up to July for Fantastic Four First Steps as well. So a little fun alliteration there for those days of the weeks that we're trying to build up to some cool stuff. So keep an eye on those. But thank you all for watching and listening along. We will catch you next time here with our Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary special.